Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, John Scholes. Welcome to our latest episode. I'm joined by Alice Shobe, who was hired in 2017 to start Amazon's community social impact programs. And over those nearly 9 years has grown them to multi-million-dollar investments, including a multi-billion-dollar housing fund that Amazon has started. Prior to joining Amazon, Alice served as the CEO of 4 different nonprofits in Washington State, and she began her career as a city planner in Kent. Alice and I discuss her efforts to grow Amazon's global and community impact and how she built that program as its first director, what first brought her out to Washington State, and Amazon's investment and work to bring more affordable housing to our community and others in which they operate. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Alice Shobe, Global Director of Amazon Community Impact. We just kind of jump right in, Alice.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So you are kind to come over on a Friday afternoon and do this. How has your Friday been? The questions get progressively more difficult.
Okay. So actually, just so you guys do edit, or you want it like full straight up?
We usually just roll straight through, but if there's something to edit,
you will do it.
Like we will edit it. But
if I sneeze.
We don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Or if you hear Kim make a little like noise, then we could edit that part out.
No, yeah, we just talk.
Okay, great. Yeah. It's good to see you.
So your Friday's going well.
My Friday's going great. I'm looking forward to the weekend.
And you're a pro at this. I know you've done a few of these. And one of them I was listening to that you did a few months ago and learned that in 8th grade you took a career assessment, said you'd be a minister.
It did.
Do you feel like that's what perhaps you're doing now in this role at Amazon, leading global community impact?
I think the piece of it that it did pick up on 8th grade is pursuing really values-driven roles and caring about people, a lot. I don't think I have a flock, but I do think that there definitely, I look back on that and I think it was picking up on something that was very true to who I am and what my career has become.
And you've been at Amazon 8+ years now. And before that you were, leading in the social impact nonprofit space.
Correct.
Here.
Yes.
What in growing up in Detroit in Michigan area informed your career decisions, you think, and kind of what you've devoted your life and purpose to?
Yeah. Well, I'm a policy wonk too. I love policy. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that an interesting fact about me was that I was born the day of the Detroit Rebellion, and I have a twin brother. We were a double bonus surprise, so lots happening for my family.
I have a twin sister.
I don't know that I knew that.
And have twins. So, yeah.
I knew you had
the twin
twins.
connection.
Yeah, wow.
And the twin sister's in Michigan, actually. Yeah.
I love it. That's great.
Well, go ahead.
Okay.
This is not about me. I'm not the city maker here. You are.
But I think about, those early childhood moments. I obviously don't remember my birth, but I do really remember the weekend that we moved my grandmother out of Detroit. And we were living just over the border of Detroit and Southfield at that time. And it was so traumatic for her. This was her home where she had lived for a long time. And then I came to understand from my more policy interest brain, the economic decisions that my parents were making in moving us to different communities. And they had a plan, and their plan was housing they could afford and really good public schools. And so they made 2 strategic moves in my childhood that I didn't necessarily like. One of them, when they moved us out more to the country. But once
so you were uprooted from one school to the other?
Yeah,
a more urban area to a rural area?
Yes, very much. So it was hard for me to sleep in that second home because it was too quiet. But as I followed that instinct, and I had a time in high school then where I drove around Detroit and Windsor. My grandmother immigrated through Windsor, and I said, take me to every house that you've ever lived in. And we documented them and took pictures of it and made maps. And so there was something that always spoke to me just about housing is so foundational and it leads to everything else in life, really. So if you have good, safe housing, but at an early age, I think I really got the economic side of housing. Maybe that's because my twin brother and I were double bonus number 4 and 5. So they had more mouths to feed, and we had to really focus on the economic decisions for our family. But you absorb those things. And so, yeah, I think that's some
How
of
old
my-
were your siblings when your parents got this double bonus?
6, 10, and 12. So,
Whew.
yeah. No, yeah. It was never a surprise that we were an unplanned double bonus. The family talked about it.
And I think it was in a profile piece in the Puget Sound Business Journal. I love what you said about housing. I think it was this: housing makes everything else easier, or something to that effect.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it does. If you just think about it, just every other decision you make, you can just make more choices, have more options when the housing piece is locked down. So,
and we're sitting here today, and you're leading one of the biggest private funds of housing in this country, certainly probably the world, and what Amazon is doing. And I want to go back to how you first came to Amazon, a little bit more of your professional path, but since we're on the topic, and it's such a massive investment and a lot of incredible milestones, how did Amazon get engaged, invested in this space?
Yep.
Why housing, and how is the company
involved?
Yeah. I mean, I think certainly this has been written about to a degree in this region, but I bet there's a lot of people that aren't familiar or maybe know that Amazon's playing a role, but don't know how.
Right. Well, housing can be a little bit wonky too, right? Technical real estate. So what I would say is how it came about is there's a national affordable housing crisis. And there's been a long time crisis in this region. I remember you and I meeting many, many years ago. We've both been at it for a while around homelessness and what the region could do. But Amazon really had achieved, success and scale as a company and had started to really have foundational roots in this region. We were in 2020 when we were first planning this. We were also in our HQ2, our second headquarters process to identify a second headquarters. So we just said, step back and said, this is a really big issue. We feel some responsibility to contribute to it. And what's a unique way that we could add value, or what would be the best way for us to add value? The company happened to hire somebody with housing experience. I had worked in government and in nonprofits, worked in housing planning, community development. And so one of the things we started with was really looking at where is the public funding concentrated. And when you look at that, especially federal funding is primarily concentrated, I think of it as a barbell in home ownership, in terms of mortgage deductions, and then also in very low income housing, so people earning less than 30% of median. And so if you think about the middle of that barbell, that long, it's often missed. And those are the employees, they're the teachers, they're the first aid responders. They're really the fabric of the community. And what the data was showing is that they were moving further and further away from their jobs. Homelessness was increasing. A lot of people don't understand that many people that experience homelessness have a job. What they don't have is a house. So Amazon said, well, we really think that middle then is somewhere we could be contributive, since the public sector money is so concentrated at those other ends.
Well, federal and local to a degree, right? I mean, our local housing levy is really directed to that 0 to 30% of area median income.
Yep, very much. And then you also look at what was happening in both the Seattle region, but also in the Arlington, Virginia region, where we have our second headquarters, is there's a lot of naturally occurring affordable housing. You have housing developers and owners that own small mom and pop units or bigger apartments. The rents tend to be a little bit below market. They might be primed and ready for some remodeling, but they're housing and providing really important stock. So we said the first thing we should do is plug the drain before filling the sink, right? So you want to preserve what you have. And that's where we really leaned into our culture. Amazon moves with speed, and we're not afraid to do that. And so we thought we could bring that mindset into quickly preserving existing stock. And in that case, when we do provide financing in the units that we fund, really one of the only requirements that we have that's unusual is we require 99 years of affordability.
Wow.
So if you think about, a building, as I said, that's in a neighborhood existing, oftentimes what's happening is we're preventing a sale to be flipped, as they call it often. A new owner, or sometimes the existing owner, is coming in. They're remodeling it,
Yeah.
and they're lowering rents over time. And so that was just hugely contributed.
Raising rents.
Excuse me, they may be, many of the deals that we financed, they're actually, it was a market rate unit that then we're lowering rents.
Oh, you are, but if
Right.
that,
If it flipped, it would be raised.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for
so you're
clarifying.
coming in, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a piece of it, but we also recognize that, housing markets are dynamic, so we also finance new construction as well.
And are you doing this through other entities, or does Amazon end up owning a lot of this?
Yeah,
real
no,
estate?
thanks. Yeah, so we purely are financing
Yeah.
it. So one approach we have to how Amazon approaches all of our community impact work is we ask ourselves, how can we build on top of the company and investments that the company's already made? So we've delivered 4.5 million meals in Puget Sound alone. We took the very drivers that deliver your package and said, let's just change the directions a little bit and have them pick up a box
We know
of
how to do
food
this.
at a food bank, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, the investment that Amazon's already made in that logistics, we're just building on top of that. So we were asking ourselves, housing was harder, frankly. We were like, we don't want people living in trucks. What are we going to do? How are we going to approach this? And we said the scale of the company means that we have a balance sheet that means we can provide financing that is not available in the market. And then that translates into more affordable rents for families living in the region. And so we set back in 2021 a goal originally with a $2 billion commitment to achieve 20,000 units in 3 regions, Puget Sound being one. But then last year, we filled the cup back up because we met our goal so fast in the number of units that it's now a $3.6 billion fund and with a goal of 35,000 units. So speed is in our DNA, and we've been using it around housing affordability.
In a mix of acquisition and development and really targeted to that workforce.
Yeah, most of it is, although we do have a mixed portfolio. We do have a pretty good chunk of units that are below 50%, some below 30%, and we have a small number of home ownership. So we work with the communities and look for the opportunities where we can make a difference, especially where the other financing isn't concentrated, or a deal that we say, but for Amazon, wouldn't go forward. And then we come in and look at it. Can I be super wonky for a minute and just say,
let's get wonky.
The most interesting thing I think about our fund that really does differentiate us from other both public and private funds is, as opposed to putting out a very specific product and then having the developers have to find the financing that fits around it, we underwrite each project individually and ask, how do we get this done? So we have some projects that have a $2 million grant in it, and some where we're investing 92% of the financing of the deal. So that also picks up the speed, because a lot of times it is the public sources that have longer processes that are slowing deals down. So that flexibility is also something that's very much part of our culture that we're leveraging in how we're approaching making a difference on this issue.
Yeah, I was looking at some documents from the city's Office of Housing the other day, and I mean, from sort of inception to completion now, I mean, some of these projects to assemble the federal funding and the low-income housing tax credits and the local
Can take
housing dollars,
years.
6 years, right?
Yep.
And you're able to move
Yes.
obviously a lot faster.
Yeah, and obviously when you're doing acquisition, you can move faster, but
Yeah.
we do definitely see time gets invested in just pulling together the different financing sources.
And then who are the types of partners that are ultimately owning, operating, or developing this housing? Are they all in the nonprofit space?
No, and that's the other piece is, so we lend to private developers, nonprofits. We've worked with the transit agencies and the public housing authorities.
You're sort of agnostic to who's doing it.
Completely.
as
We're
long
like,
as
are you creating more affordable housing? We're open. And then one of the things that we're also really excited about is we have a housing accelerator program where we're also investing in the next generation of community-based, both public and, both nonprofit and private developers, but helping them with capacity building and then access to financing so they can really get that first project done and get going. And so that cohort is really made up of people that have lived and worked in this community for a long time, small developers. And so I have to say that's part of what I'm really excited about because we're accelerating that future generation, and also people that really know this region as well and know the neighborhoods, and their purpose in life is to keep affordable housing across the region here.
Well, and commend you all for the leaning into the acquisition side too. Of it's a lot cheaper to go acquire what's out there
Right.
naturally occurring close to affordable
Right.
now, buy it down a little bit than starting
Exactly.
from scratch. And
Yes.
we need to be doing more of that.
Yeah. So in short, it was the urgency of the problem that attracted us. And when we realized we had some ways we could help, and we just really leaned into our culture.
And I know it's not, you have a broad portfolio of work you're doing in the housing space and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
You started there, I know 8 or so years ago. You had one employee to kind of build out this work first locally, if I have that right. And then now your portfolio's expanded
Global,
across the
yeah.
globe.
Yeah.
I'm curious just how you approached that, like the first 6 months on the job. Here's your laptop and office, Alice. Go at it. How did you work with the team there, the leadership to formulate where you'd have impact, what you'd focus on, how you would do it, how you came up with decision-making frameworks around, starting this work for a company that, has been around for some time, but was
pretty new in the space.
Pretty new, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, the company had reached that point. I've lived in this community long enough. I remember when other companies, you have to be operating for a while, have your feet fully under you, and then you pick up your head and you're like, how do I contribute now?
How do we have an impact?
So we were at that moment as a company. And I would say the first thing I did in my first few weeks was when I told all my community partners, I've lived and worked in this community for a long time, like, you're not going to see me for a little while. First thing I have to do is figure out how this company works. So I think that
put your head down.
But then within the company, we also were, in the region and understanding issues. But I also interviewed in the first month, just interviewed a bunch of employees, did focus groups internally, and said, what are some small pockets of things that we're already doing that we could accelerate, like that look like they're working? Because there were these small, pockets of employees that had made things happen around education, around disaster relief. And then the second question I asked is, what makes total sense for Amazon to do? And that second question in particular was really helpful and guiding because people know it when they see it. So one of the things I was reflecting on recently is ask that question. And I went to senior leadership and said, we're going to establish some temporary criteria or priorities of what we're going to focus on. Otherwise, I can't sort my inbox, right? We have to know. And so 8.5 years ago, we picked food security because we had delivery and we had food, and we were at that point, that was pre-Whole Foods, but we were starting to get into the food space. Education, because we were hiring a lot of computer scientists and we needed to, think about the long-term workforce. And we had some interesting small pilots that were happening. Disaster relief, because whenever there was a big natural disaster, the company found itself just responding, and we had...
Because people were asking you to step up because they knew you could get stuff places.
Yep, so we had an employee that wrote a proposal about how to scale that and formalize it. And then employee volunteerism, we knew employees were going to be a big scaling mechanism at a big company, and that if we could also follow their passions and support them to be in the community, that we could get more done that was really community-centric and relevant in the different communities. So those temporary priorities stuck, basically, is what happened. And we just iterated, as Amazon does, of having big visions. We want to get more kids educated. We want to get more people fed. We want to be able to respond to disasters, quickly, those kinds of things. And we just kept going, and we've stuck with those areas of focus for our, what we call community impact, just the small number of priorities. But then in other communities, or in every community, we have more like highly local things, funding Bumper Shoot here in Seattle, or contributing to the waterfront, where it's the right thing to do for this region, but those other priorities guide us more globally.
And you've gone from one employee to 100 plus in 15 countries.
Yeah. Yep.
Give or take.
Yes, something like that.
What's been most challenging in just scaling all of that?
Well, I would say in the last 8 years, some of the challenges were also opportunities. So things like the pandemic. We had this very nascent idea about food delivery before the pandemic. We started to get to know the food, using our own networks. We weren't quite there yet, but then you may remember there was a headline in the Seattle Times that said Seattle Public Schools aren't opening until we can get a laptop for every kid.
Yep.
And I got an email from a senior leader that said, Alice, what are you going to do about that?
Is that all it said?
Yeah, literally.
In the subject line.
Yeah, that's right. But it was a great prompt. And so we took some of the thinking that we had been thinking about food delivery, and we worked with Seattle Public Schools and said, let's work together to source the laptops and deliver them to the front doors of kids' homes. That was actually our food delivery pilot, was that laptop pilot.
So that they could begin virtual school.
Exactly. Yeah. So we purchased a Chromebook. I think it was 7,200 or 9,200 Chromebooks, and delivered them to students that didn't have, online access. And other companies came in with hotspots and other things, and brought the whole picture together. But that was what really showed us that. And that at Amazon, like, you start to build on something that you already have, you can scale it very quickly. So that's how we've moved into, 4.5 million meals delivered in this community. And so I love that image of the person that drops off the package, on your front step has another shift where they're going to a food bank, and we're working with United Way that helps us coordinate with all the food banks. And they pick up a package of food and they deliver it right to the home of somebody that needs it. And then I'll just say we did research that showed we're reaching over 40% of families would have otherwise gone without food. They can't get to a food bank. They're working. They're too far away. There's some other reason. So we're actually reaching people that would be otherwise going without food. And so that makes my heart sing, I have to say.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Maybe we don't need government-owned grocery stores. We just need more of that. Editorial.
No comment.
Yeah. Not a question. You came out to Seattle, I know, about 30 or so years ago, and you'd never been here before.
That's right.
Is that right? Sight unseen?
Correct.
The former college roommate said,
Correct.
this place is pretty great.
She did. And when you're 22, you make those kinds of decisions.
You trust your college roommate? So what did you come to? Did you have anything ready for you here?
I didn't.
Did she have a place?
She had a little studio in Federal Way, and
so you had a couch?
I had a futon on the floor for my first month on her floor. And the fun fact that I like to tell is I met my husband my first week in Seattle on an informational interview when I was looking for a job. So
you got connected to him through some mutual?
Yeah, through United Way. I had a college professor that knew somebody that worked at United Way, and she referred me to his organization, and we met for coffee.
The first week you were here?
The first week, but we didn't start dating right away. But you know how I hooked him?
You needed more information.
Wait, this is a good part of the story given the conversation. Yeah. How I hooked him was I invited him to join on the King County Regional Housing Levy proposal campaign with me. That was like that was my dating hook, So he did. I said, "Hey, I think
wooed him."
Wooed him into affordable housing and into my life full time." So. But that levy didn't pass.
I was going to ask you, were you successful?
We weren't. It was, I think, the first of two regional housing levies that this region has. The county level.
For property tax, yeah.
Yeah, I was working for the city of Kent by then as a planner. So I was working in the suburbs, and affordable housing is as big of an issue there as it is in the city.
Yeah, you're a true city maker with your city planning chops and background. And you had your degree was in urban planning from Michigan State.
It was urban policy, and then I had a minor in planning, just enough to pretend I knew what I was doing when I got that job at Kent.
Did you want to be a planner when you were going through?
I didn't. I mean,
school?
Really, I moved to Seattle and I wanted to work for a low-income housing developer. And that came out of my internship I did in Massachusetts in the homeless division, the state homeless division. So I wanted to go upstream from homelessness from that internship experience. But nobody would hire me as in the development community. So I leaned on the city planning job, and I got hired as a 3-month temp contract at Kent. And then those great things that happen, somebody leaves, they look at you, they're like, you seem to be doing okay. Would you like a job? And
hang around.
Yeah, but city planning is a great entree into professional life because you understand how government works, especially working in a city like Kent. I loved working for the city of Kent. I was working as a 22-year-old with the mayor, with the city council, with the, community activists, with the commission members, the neighborhoods, all of it. And so I often coach young people now to say, be a big fish in a small pond early in your career, because you really get to see that big picture. And then you just start applying it at different scales, as you go along, as opposed to being a little widget in a big place. I think it really helped me learn a lot.
Because you got a ton of exposure that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise in a big organization.
Yeah, seeing the big picture, how things connect, this is what the mayor does, this is what the council does, here's what happens when they agree, here's what happens when they disagree, here's how a community activist can come in and mess it up, or shake it up, not mess it up, shake it up. So yeah, it was a great job.
And that was in Kent, that was before the Sounder train came through the Kent Station development and all that.
Dating me, yes, yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm just noting there were some big planning moves that the city of Kent went through.
I was there when, more controversial, but when the big warehouses were going in the Kent Valley. So it was still a mixture of farms.
Yeah.
And so my job as a city planner was to actually review plans and approve permits.
It's a massive warehouse district, important to our region there in
including
Auburn.
an Amazon warehouse. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Full circle.
Yeah, I know. You're bringing me back.
And you did some work in the East Side too.
I did. I worked for Arch. And so my claim to fame, which is a regional association of suburban cities, is I wrote accessory dwelling unit regulations for 7 of the East Side cities when I was a planner on the East Side. So that was my claim to fame. And then when I bought my home in Seattle, I bought a home with a illegal mother-in-law that I got to legalize when Seattle passed its regs.
Finally,
so,
After they needed your help in Seattle to get organized. That took a while here to get that done.
Yeah, I get no credit for what Seattle did. I was just smart enough to buy a house.
But it got done on the
East
Side.
Well, right. And the whole region was really looking at that at the same time. And so it was just a matter of their individual processes. So, but having a house with a second unit is great. And then when your adult children come home, you have a place to put them.
And, on the topic of housing, since, you're deploying a huge fund now, you have had experience previous to your time at Amazon. You led Bellwether Housing for...
I was the interim CEO. Yep.
You've worked on ADU and planning and public policy legislation. When you step back and kind of look at this region and affordability, the challenges around homelessness, what do you think we're getting right, and where do you think we need to be doing things differently?
Yeah.
And we can attribute all of this to your own personal opinions and not the
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But what I would say is,
you have a lot of expertise and perspective on this issue.
I get asked this question a lot. And so one of the things that when I was working deeply in family homelessness, I think that maybe when I first met you, John, is we used to think about homelessness, the contributors to homelessness is a big funnel. And so homelessness is very complex, which means it happens to families for different reasons. The biggest are loss of job and healthcare issues. So those are the 2 big ones. But then there's other things that often are oversubscribed to the problem. Mental illness and drug addiction is definitely a part of it. But when you look at the big picture, the funnel is lack of opportunity, usually some kind of chaotic event that is financial. That means you're making a choice between your house and your car. So when I think about when homelessness is going up, I think about we're putting too many things in the funnel, and out of the bottom of the funnel is homelessness. So as a region, you need to be pulling things out of the top of the funnel and getting them right? So you add in complexities into the world, things like the pandemic, and other educational opportunities or swings in the job market, and it changes the funnel, right? So I think it doesn't come up with a solution, but I have a lot of appreciation from being in the work for so many years about why it is complex. And it's not a lack of willpower or people trying really hard, to make a difference. And so I think the number one thing that a region needs is holding hands across everyone to say, this is an issue and we're going to figure it out. Because what we see around the country is that willpower, that focus that comes of shared commitment, plus really, I believe, really using data to say, are we making progress? Is it giving us the indicators of difference? And then you always take the hard data plus just the powerful anecdotes or what you're seeing on the street and saying, are we making progress or are we not making progress, right? And then if you're not where you want to be, you just keep at it keep at it, keep at it, keep at it until you get there. But a lot of it really becomes that commitment to say, we're going to figure this out. And when communities start to haggle over, anything but success on the bottom of the funnel, that's often where I see lack of productivity, lack of making progress. So,
are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? Do you feel like we're on the right course here?
I have that optimistic gene, just in that, you have to not lose faith in people. I do appreciate and feel like since the pandemic, there were some hard decisions that were made and some trade-offs. And again, I think it's always a balance between the human side and remembering that these are people at the end of the day, and, making some tough trade-offs. So things like, using parks for sports and things like that, and finding other opportunities for temporary housing. I mean, I'll be honest, earlier in my career, I wasn't a fan of the tiny home movement. I became more of a fan in that it's better than the other options.
Yeah, four walls and a roof.
And safe, and, especially when you're, adding the safety and security and lighting and, other things that we all depend on. I feel safer in a home that has street lights when I'm walking home after dark. So yes, I think we are making progress. And every time we relearn, it's harder than we want it to be. That it's going to be a little different each year about what's going to work and what the set of ingredients are going to be. So I wish I had the secret pill for the shared willpower at the same moments, just to really focus on it together and just say, we're in it. We're going to figure it out. So I see that. I still see a lot of that in this region. And so I'm hopeful.
You have a great mantra, I know, that you use with your team that I think relates to this issue. I don't want to, you say it, I don't want to butcher it, but it resonated with me when I was reading it.
Is it the ask for what you need, offer what you have? That one? Yeah.
I think the other way around, though.
Yeah, either way. Offer what you have, ask for what you need.
Yeah, which I just love.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. It's kind of, I think it's a simplifier in recognizing that sometimes you are the one that has something to offer, and sometimes you have to ask for what you need.
Yeah.
And I think the powerful combination of both of those, and never trying to stay in one side of that all the time. Also letting yourself admit when you need something and asking others for help. I think some of that humanness is just brings us tighter and closer as well.
And I imagine you in this role now at a company of the scale of Amazon with the resources and now this established community impact program, you all and you yourself are getting asked from communities that you're in around the world of do this, do that. How do you work through those decisions? I imagine because you have a clear set of commitments and a rationale for how you're showing up and where you're showing up, it allows you to not just to say, hey, here's what we're doing. But is that a big challenge in your job?
It is always a challenge. But one of my early performance feedbacks at Amazon, an Amazon exec said, Alice Shobe is excellent at saying no to people and having them feel good about it.
It's a skill.
So I do think that, and I coach my team on this a lot, that a quick no is kind. And what it shows is if you're clear about what your focus is, what you're good at, where you can be helpful, and you answer the email, you answer the call, and you quickly explain, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to help you, that a quick no is very kind. Then you don't waste their time. They understand that they're not, barking up a tree, that they're not going to get anything. And so I do think that having clear priorities and thinking about, as companies, how to leverage your culture, how to do what you do best. And that's okay. There's always going to be other issues. I remember when I first started at Amazon, a lot of the arts organizations were particularly frustrated with me and with Amazon.
Where's our check? Where's our investment?
Well, also, just because they're like, the arts are important. And I'm like, I agree. I love the arts.
But the perspective was we're not uniquely or exceptionally
it was also
positioned
that, we're going to make some tough choices. And then, over time, there's things like, well, how does Amazon Music get involved or what other? And there's some other business-aligned things that start to happen that make sense. But I think just with community impact and doing these voluntary contributions that businesses are making, you should just be clear, you should be focused, and you want to be constantly looking at saying, are we actually making a difference? And that's, again, part of why I'm so excited about the housing work. You said maybe not a lot of people know about it. I agree with you. We're doing what we can to try to get more of that word out. But I also believe it's the kind of investment that over time, it will speak for itself. Like we will begin to understand more of what we gained by saving and moving quickly on these units and things like that. So sometimes it's also having patience to let the community see the great way that you contributed. And if it was something meaningful, it will eventually show and people will understand it, I believe.
Yeah, no doubt. We have a couple of standard questions, Alice. One is, what was your first job that you took a paycheck for?
Yeah. Well, I told you my parents moved me to the country. So the only place I could get on my bike was a golf course. So at 14, my first paid job was washing dishes at the golf course.
Oh, wow. Did you golf as well? Or
there's
no time for that because you just had to show up and wash the dishes.
My mom told me one time I would never be successful if unless I learned to golf. So out of spite, I never learned to golf.
I'll show you.
And I really regret that. I have to say that was a bad decision on my part because golf looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. You played hockey out there, though, I know.
I did play hockey, yeah. Yep.
But you've hung up the skates for pickleball paddles.
Pickleball. My husband and I are really into kayaking now, paddle boarding, biking. Yeah, I pick up new things.
Did you
all
get
the time.
into this paddleboard rave off of Gasworks that
I did
took off this
not.
summer
I did
on
not.
Lake Union? Did you see that?
No, my husband and I just finished a 4-day sea kayaking training. So we were flipping our kayaks over in
where was that?
We were in South Lake Union for 3 classes, and then we went to Whidbey Island and North End and went into the real waters. So it was great.
Cool.
Yeah, it's my new thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then our final question: what's your perfect Saturday in Seattle?
Well, I love to do things where I'm gliding. I've noticed that pattern. So rollerblading, ice skating, skiing, kayaking, all those things. So I would say it's either on the water or doing one of those things, or it's a weekend like this weekend. My husband and I are going to see Suffs, and I'm super excited to see that musical and heard great things about the performance in New York. So I love living in a city where I can walk downtown. It's a long walk, but walk downtown and go see a show or go to the Seattle Center. So I'd say either gliding or something cultural that the city's offering.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, pretty good.
Well, thanks for making time for this, especially on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you doing that and all that you're doing at Amazon, and proud to be a Seattleite with an incredible company like this doing great work, not just in our community, but across the world. So, and how you all have done it, like leveraging your resources, your expertise, what you've built for good is pretty inspiring. So thanks, Alice.
Thanks, John.
Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Alice. Appreciate her coming on. And shortly after coming on, Alice announced she would be leaving Amazon at the end of this year in December, and noted that she has a metaphor that she calls pick your peak, and that to recognize your chapter when you've done something and that you were the right leader for the right time. And after 9 tremendous years leading Amazon's social impact work, she will be moving on to her next chapter. So congratulations to her on all she's accomplished. And again, appreciate her making the time to come on Seattle City Makers. Well, I want to close out with a recommendation of something to check out here in downtown Seattle, and keep your eyes on the Rail Spur project and the 3 new concepts that Renee Erickson will open here in just a few months, I believe, maybe less than that. I got through the spaces yesterday. Incredible beer hall, a fine dining establishment. They've done an incredible job in the former FX McCrory space. You won't recognize it. It's very, very different in lots of good ways. And excited to have her bring those 3 concepts to that building and to the neighborhood. And then later next year, Death & Co., the famed cocktail bar that started in New York and has opened a few around the country, including in Denver, will soon open up next to Renee's spots in the Rail Spur project in Pioneer Square. So looking forward to that opening for sure as well. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association with support from James Cito and production by Thread Theory.